front really special, except that Mari to me is very special, and I'm really happy that you're here. And I know lots of you have had a chance to get to know her a little bit through care pages. And this is Mari Cobb.
Welcome.
Hey, Mary. Thank you for coming.
Well, first I want to say I'm honored to be here because the very fact that you're taking a death and dying course shows a lot of courage. I took Bruce's course about 30 years ago on the same topic before I was a hospice volunteer. And funny now, this is way different than being a hospice volunteer, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So a little bit about myself. I worked for the state, and then I worked as a consultant for 15 years, and then I went back to the state to get my benefits increased. And I retired from the state at 62, and then went back to consulting, and then I got diagnosed about 6 months later. So I'm 65 now, so I've been putting up with this for 3 years, and they gave me 6 to 12 months to live. So even though I'm on the precipice of death now, I've treated it for longer than most in my particular kind of cancer. And I wanted the questions because I talk with Julie, because I can talk about anything you want to talk about. And I'd really rather it be a dialogue so that I'm an open book. I've got I think my purpose was this cancer. I mean, I don't like being sick, trust me, but I have become a much softer, kinder, especially to myself. And I've cleared up issues with my older son that I've had for years, and my husband. So there's a certain immediacy when you're facing death. He just says, you don't have time to clown around, you better be yourself because you don't have much longer. And so if there's anything that, as a takeaway, that I would love to give you tonight is be in your own truth, because that's the only relationships that will be satisfying to you. And you have to kind of covet who you share yourself with, but that's been the main lesson that I've learned. So I kind of like to open up the questions now, unless anybody wants to.
I'd like to start. My name's Delane Finley.
Hi.
My genealogy. And my question is kind of twofold. First, do you have a genealogist in your family? Have you gotten all of your information down for your genealogist?
I was the genealogist. I did it on behalf of my dad. There's no cancer except for my aunt in my genealogy. And I had bile-duct cancer, which has been mostly in my liver, but now it's all over the place. None of that, although my brother has prostate cancer and he's been treated, and my other brother had follicular lymphoma and he's been clean for 10 years. I have never been clean. I have been sick the entire time. I've had 25 treatments of poison chemotherapy, and I have permanent neuropathy in my feet. They're numb. I'm cold all the time. I was as little as Julie was 6 weeks ago when I met her, and this is all cancer right here. I'm 65 and getting prego clothes, which is pretty comical. So there, to my knowledge, but bile-duct cancer occurs in 5,000 cases a year, which is one of the bad things about drug trials, because it's not profitable for the drug companies to do any drug trials. So there's no new therapy. It's the mustard gas from World War II is basically what I've been getting.
Okay, my second question into that was, genealogy was my passion. Did you have a passion before you were diagnosed, and how did you handle having to let that go?
No, it was really my dad's passion, and it was before he died, which was right after I had taken Bruce's class and become a hospice volunteer, which was all very good timing. So no, I kind of let that go before, because I put up the site. It took a lot of effort to put up that site on myfamily.com with all the pictures and the interviews and stuff, and none of my family gave a rip about it. I've got 3 siblings, and so I've let the site die. Are the questions coming through on the, should I repeat the questions?
Probably.
Okay.
My question is, when you first found out that you had cancer, how did you add to it a month later?
Well, I was working.
So what was the question?
The question was, how did I react when I first found out I had cancer?
Right.
I found out on December 1st that I had a bad CT scan, and I was at a client, I was a consultant in Las Vegas, with the boss who I had mentored earlier, and she just visited me last weekend, so it's been so I was stunned. And then I got a diagnosis on December 13th, which nothing happens in the medical field in December. So I was devastated. And then I went to Mayo Clinic. My 27-year-old son, I have 2 grown sons. My younger one, my 27-year-old, had a connection at Mayo, so I got an appointment within 2 days to go there, and they basically said it's hopeless. The tumor was this big. I felt no pain, no nothing. I just had weight loss. And I was numb. And then the barrage of well-meaning friends started happening with, oh, I have a friend that did lemon juice and water and it cured you, and then they have an agenda about, well, if you don't do it, you're a stupid ass. And so you get overwhelmed with information. And so if I could leave another point with you is, to any of your beloveds that have this disease, is you have to learn to trust your own intuition, because you're overwhelmed with advice. And you don't know right away. And another thing is, you just have so many plans that get canceled. It's so frustrating, and you have to tell other people. Sometimes I may have to cancel because I'm just too tired. I just don't feel good.
So how long did the shock, after the shock, once you found out and you kind of settled in, how long did it take for you to really settle in and live everyday life?
Repeat the question is, how long after I got the diagnosis did I kind of settle in? And I've heard other patients say this too. The worst time is in between the diagnosis. Well, the worst time is in between the scan, which is usually what starts things, and the diagnosis, because you can't even do any research. You're just helpless. But that was, for me, luckily 2 weeks. That's months for some people. Then there was I had to wait another 6 weeks for treatment because Mayo said they couldn't do anything for me. And I didn't like my oncologist, and that was another mistake, because I didn't like her from the very beginning, and my sister went with me, and I was too new to know that I would have a feeling of what would work for me. But then I started my treatments on January 13th after pleading to get a port. This is what a port looks like. It's where I get my chemotherapy.
Can you all see that?
Yeah.
It's a big old thing, but trust me, it's way better than getting in your veins, because that poison is nasty on your little veins, and this is the big vein.
So, and do you understand that that port is laying right underneath the skin? And there's a direct
It's
access.
a surgery, and they can pull it out if I ever stop chemo, but I'm still planning on going to an anthroposophic MD named Dr. Cohen in San Francisco, so I'm kind of my last straw.
And can you explain what that is?
Anthroposophic is kind of an outgrowth of Rudolf Steiner, who's more well known for Waldorf schools, but he also had a branch of medicine, and it's basically his belief that diet and meditation and treating the whole body is more important than treating the symptoms, because my body's been barraged with poison, and my GI system's a mess. And so hopefully, maybe I'll get some spiritual growth out of it.
Okay, I have one more question. One more question. Have you ever thought about giving up?
Oh, many times.
Have you ever thought about
Have I ever
giving
thought
up?
about giving up? Many times. Last week. I've been crying a lot, but my scan on January 7th was way worse than all of my others because it metastasized, and that's a really bad, worrying cancer. And then I just got another scan last Friday, which was even worse, which some of you have noticed on my care pages. I've noticed. So, and there's some belief saying, when your soul gets what it needs to grow, it just gives up and it's ready to go. I don't know what I believe in all that, but I somehow, for me, hospice isn't, I'm not quite ready for hospice. And I hope I'll know and be able to gracefully go. I'm glad I don't have dementia or something. Well, I know this will be fast. It's probably 3 months, 6 months tops, that I have. I lost track of who's next. So raise your hand higher if you're next.
She got it.
You.
So my grandma got diagnosed with dementia a couple months before she died, and she told me and she knew she was going to die. She knew that she didn't have much to live, and she told me that her priorities have changed. And,
Absolutely.
And she's seeing things in a different light, and she made amends with my uncle, which was her son,
Yes.
which they've had problems for at least 20 years.
Yes.
And she became like a different person. Did that happen to you?
That's happened to me. I felt like I've always been kind of an outgoing, gregarious person, but I've had this thing. I came from a very straight family, and I've been pretty alternative my whole life, so I've had to hide that. And in the workplace in IT, you know, you're definitely, you can be a geek, weirdo musician, but you can't be. So I've kind of hidden who I was. So part of this cancer for me has been coming out, really, just like a gay person coming out. And so in that sense, it's changed. And yeah, I've had some very vivid dreams. And one of my dreams was this issue that I have with my husband, which I've had for years. We've been married for 33 years. And this angel came to me in my dream and said, you can let go of that grudge now. And I felt filled with grace. And I don't go to church, but you know, I have spirit with me. And I love all the blessings and stuff that come on my care pages. It's just overwhelming. I mean, I couldn't really accept all the people that supported me, and it's just so undeniable in my care pages. It's been I'm sure it's extended my life because it's been so obvious how many people love me, and I just never knew it before. I just didn't know it. I mean, Lance Armstrong, I remember Oprah Winfrey, interviewed Lance Armstrong saying, how would you not know you were disappointing your fans? And he said, you asked me the truth, I didn't know. I just didn't know. So that's why I said I'm a kinder person, for sure, especially towards myself. So you have to number yourself.
You said how your brother had cancer as well, and they are now clean. Do you ever? I mean, obviously they're not recovered and stuff like that. But do you ever feel resentment or anger towards the fact that you still have it and then they were able to?
No, the question was, do I ever feel resentment because my two siblings have recovered? I have always. This is something I've learned with the cancer that I didn't know before. I've always been what's in front of me, what am I going to do about it? And my older son has Asperger's, so I was a very active mom trying to get help. And one of his issues with me now is he feels like he's got self-esteem issues because I was always feeling guilty. He took my trying to get him help as low self-esteem. And so I don't know whether he'll get past that, whether we'll get through that or not. I'm encouraging him to go to therapy. And I think he may, but I've learned how to kind of define my fence, which I never could do boundaries before. I never knew what was mine. I took on stuff that wasn't mine at all, and I'm learning how to do that because I don't have enough physical, emotional energy to do it. I can only kind of deal with myself. So no, I can't say I resent it. But that being said, I'm fascinated by near-death experiences, and I found that when I was a hospice volunteer, we had to go to mandatory education once a month, and we were all fascinated. Whenever there was a near-death experience speaker, we were fascinated. So I still hold out that a miracle is possible. I believe in those near-death experiences, the common thing, and I believe that, that I'm not afraid of death. I just don't want to suffer much because I'm already in a fair amount of pain. So I want to be as vibrant and conscious as I can until I die. So no, I really have had very little anger. I've kind of been surprised. I went to see Julie as a therapist. It just hasn't come up. I don't think I'm in denial about it. It's not that I don't have hopes and unrealistic things and give up and, but no, I for whatever reason, I don't. Who's next? You? I guess. Then you're next.
I wanted to know, how do your sons and your husband deal with it?
Well, my husband's a very private person, attorney, very logical, gets nuts when he's out of control. So I've learned with him that if I can give him a list, that's how he wants to show his love. Fix me dinner, warm up the nuke bags because I'm always cold. And just recently, you know, we've kind of cried together, like, we set up all our legal affairs when I got diagnosed, so I mean, you know, those order, you know, stuff is in order that way. But emotionally, it's been hard to show it. And my younger son has always been, he just has been together from the day he popped out that way. So he's been calling me. He came up last month. He's going to come up next month. He calls me. But my older son's an Asperger kid. He's more private than my husband, which is saying a lot. But that email that he just sent me 2 days ago about, I think I've got self-esteem issues, and I think that if you would just forgive yourself, that I would get out of it. That's a common 20-year-old thing. I'm sorry, but you know, it's like blame your parents. I blamed my parents until I was 40, so I hope you get out of it before I did. So, you know, but he said some pretty profound things for him. I mean, he's come a very long way. So I've got 3 emails from him, my older son, that I treasure. So you're next.
Yeah, I want to add a question. I was diagnosed with breast cancer a few years ago, and I was lucky it ended up just being a very small thing, but at the time, of course, they want you to go to radiation and possibly chemotherapy just because, and so, you know, I did a lot of research on it while in the time between making these decisions, and I just told them I don't, you know, want to do it, and one of the questions they had for me was, well, do you want to die? And I was like, well, no, but I want to live my life with a good quality of life.
Right.
So, having had the chemotherapy and what you have gone through, I know you said you were in a lot of pain. Was the chemotherapy worth it, or how do you feel about the chemotherapy?
I think the chemo was worth it because I didn't have any symptoms when I was diagnosed in December, but I started treatment on January 13th, and I was getting really bad liver pains. And the first treatment, my markers went way down, the tumor markers, an indication of how bad the cancer is, and I felt relief. But it, you know, it is. Oh, and the question was, you know, was the chemotherapy worth it? The quality of life. I researched other stuff, and I wasn't, even though I'd been an alternative person, I wasn't quite willing to do the alternative stuff. And other than my cancer, I've really been healthy. I never took anything, no supplements. You know, I was in perfect health, and I still am. My blood counts still look good. If I go to ER, I'm the last person on the totem pole because I'm not in crisis. You know, so, which 10 hours is the wait at UCD in case you ever want to go to their ER. So,
Wow.
it's a nightmare. But even though, especially in Sacramento, because I didn't bond with her, she didn't really properly notify me. She wouldn't put in the report when I asked her to because I had done research about oxaliplatin, which is a very toxic chemo. But I was only sick for about 4 days, which sounds... And then I went to a drug trial, and then I went to oncologists out of Cedars who work with me, and I found the difference between a doctor who works with me and who doesn't. And I get migraines, and he worked with changing the pre-medications to prevent the nausea and the diarrhea, and it was so much better. I was sick for a day. And really, I needed the day because that's the downtime that you need to process what the heck's going on with you. And so, and it was every other week. So, yes, I mean, this past year, I went to my nephew's wedding, which was last, in Colorado. We river rafted for the rehearsal dinner and ate on the beach. And I was able to go to Mexico with my girlfriend playing golf. I was able to go to Galapagos with my husband. My siblings are coming out next week. So, and I'm not in a lot of pain. It's just, I feel like I'm 9 months pregnant with twins. And you know, I've got a duck wobble going on. And so I have all the drugs. You get lots of drugs if you're a cancer patient, but it has been worth it for me, yes. But with the cooperation of the doctor, it made it way more worth it.
And just a thought, they give you nutritional aid while you were doing this? Because, you know, with a lot of cancer patients, they don't get the nutrition therapy that they need to actually help their bodies be strong.
Right. They gave me a handout at Sutter. I was totally disgusted. But then again, I was never really good about a diet. I never had any discipline to be on the supplements or to be. So the question was nutrition. Did they give me nutrition counseling? But when I was at Cedars-Sinai, the very first chemo treatment, A social worker came by offering her services for free. A nutritional person came by and offered her services for free, did a workup. I told her I'm no good at diets. I don't have any, I just be straight with you. If I can feel a difference, I'll do it, but I have to have pretty fast. I think you were next.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. You said that like your husband and your son were very private and stuff like that. And
Yes.
obviously by doing care pages, you made your experience really public.
Right.
What made you to decide to do that? And do you want to repeat that?
So what made me decide to go to Care Pages? I don't know how I found, I lost a girlfriend to breast cancer who had a birthday within 10 days of mine about 2 years before, and she had a Care Page site. And I was getting I have 3 siblings and a lot of friends, and I just didn't have the energy to make all the phone calls. So that was my primary interest, it's just, this is what's going on, so I don't have to make the phone calls. And then it became a journey of discovery of me helping to come up with my own truth. And I mean, as you've been on my Care Pages, I posted a lot lately because a lot of stuff is going down, but I don't know what I'd do without it. I mean, for me, it's been like having my spiritual counselor right next to me. And I feel like it's also leaving a legacy for my children. And hopefully, I mean, that's why I made it a public site. You can get this link to anybody, and if you want me to email them or whatever, whoever's facing this, I'll be happy to. I mean, that's why I made it public, you can give it to other people, because if anything, if I can pass on anything that I've learned, that would make me feel good. I think you were next.
So getting on the topic, so you say you golf, right?
Yeah.
What kind of club do you?
What kind of clubs are used for golfing? Well, we belong to Valley High Country Club, and I've got Cobra Woods, and I've got Cleveland Irons, and I've got a Cleveland Sandwich, and the putter with the 3 dots. I don't even know what Scotty something. And my handicap used to be, my husband's a 3 handicap, which is really good. The best I've ever been is a 20, and I haven't played golf since August, and obviously that's out of the question. But I'm a 27 now.
Okay.
But I can hit my driver pretty well, and I really love the meditative experience of the golf course, especially at night when you've got the course to yourself. I just love that, and I really miss that.
Yeah.
But that's why LA was so hard on my husband, because he's not a social person. He doesn't have friends. His respite from me is to go to the golf course and play golf. And when we were in LA, it was too expensive.
Yeah.
And I was there for 11 months. And so it just drove him crazy. And so I was going to fly to LA tomorrow to talk about a drug trial, but I'm too sick. He didn't even want to fly down with me. I was going to fly down with a girlfriend. He grew up in LA, but he hates it so much because I think of all those bad memories of how he was stuck in a 1-bedroom studio with dogs barking and kids coming home at 3 in the morning being drunk and making loud noises. Woman talking about, your cat, I'm going to kill your cat if you don't prevent it from going on my patio.
So that day when you were playing,
So I'm not playing any. I doubt I'll ever play again. I mean, unless a miracle happens.
right. But that day on that certain day that you were playing, what was the temperature?
Oh, in Mexico, it was beautiful. It was 70s. I mean, I had a jacket for when it got cold in the evening, but I was just in a golf shirt. And we stayed at a timeshare that had a really beautiful par 3 golf course right on the course. And I went with a girlfriend. So it was good bonding time. I was glad to get home.
Okay, so do the weather have something to do with the pain that you have?
No. The anthroposophical view is they believe in different bodies, and the mental body is where the immune system sits. And that when you get cancer, it can't fight anymore because the immune system's compromised and you get cold.
Right.
And I certainly have I've got like 4 layers on, lots of layers. I'm always really cold. And my husband's an environmentalist, so we compromise. So I turn it down to 68 when I leave in the house, but it's 72 and I'm there and I'm still not close to being warm enough. and that's increasingly getting worse.
So on a brighter note, what did you score?
Well, I've broken 80. I mean, I've shot in the low 80s a couple times, but I'm usually happy to break 100.
Okay.
Aren't we all?
But oh, you know, that long drive, you
That's
know, that
great.
gives you the satisfaction.
It's the best, there's no doubt.
Yes.
Are you still taking the vitamin and mineral supplements from your Danish Angels?
I'm not, I'm taking vitamin D because I had it measured. For one thing, I like to have proof that I'm deficient because you get so many conflicting things. I just don't know what to take. So I had my doctor measure my vitamin D and it's a 20, which is borderline low. So I'm willing to take that. And I know that this anthroposophical guy will probably give me some infusions of a herb, which is mistletoe, and it hasn't been proven to be efficacious, but it has been proven to, ascites is this big belly, and if I can get any relief from that, even though I know there's cancer there and I can't get relief from that, but if any of it's fluid and I can get relief, why not? I got the port, it's easy, so, you know, San Francisco is not convenient. See, you were next to me, too.
I have two questions. One, have you ever heard of the Garrison therapy?
Yes, the Gerson therapy. And that's the thing about searching things on the internet, is you don't know how current it is. And so I ordered the Moss report, which Judy and I have known each other for years, and we practice yoga together. And one of our yoga buddies' husband just got diagnosed with follicular lymphoma. And he turned me on to Robert Moss. I didn't know about him. But he's a PhD psychologist, and he publishes this paper like this thick, not for my kind of cancer, but for his kind of cancer, but a lot of it was applicable. And it compared all the diets, all the therapies. I had some pretty modern therapies in terms of radiation, targeted radiation. They were all in there. He keeps his reports up to date. He compares things. And the Gerson diet's been discredited to some degree because there's so much evidence that glucose is not good for cancer, because, you know, the cancers have 5 times the receptors of glucose, you know, than regular things. And Gerson therapy talks about like 10 glasses of apple carrot juice, which is hot, very sweet. And so I considered it, but I decided against it. That was the Gerson therapy, that was the question.
Well, my second question was, do you have anything that you'd like to share with somebody that's afraid of dying from cancer?
It was interesting. Somebody told me about a psychiatrist at Stanford that talked to a group of caregivers and patients, and he said that men tend to get support through, of course as a generalization, through activity. And so when I was in LA, I was very active in the cancer support group, and they had activities like Qigong and Tai Chi and yoga and Feldenkrais, and the guy that taught the Qigong was just, you've seen pictures of him if you've looked at my, he is an angel. He's a 10-year survivor of brain cancer. And so we would do the Qigong, and then we would break up for 20 minutes, and then we'd go back to another form of Qigong. And in that time was all the networking, and that's when you're talking with other cancer patients, and it organically comes up. You know, you don't have to be in the conversation, but it talks about death and dying. And so, but for women, the psychologist or psychiatrist, I'm not sure which, at Stanford was saying, women need girlfriends. And that's certainly been my experience, that, I mean, the yoga community that Judy and I participate in Saturday has been, you know, all these communities are so important, especially since I don't go to a church. And I've talked about it, you know, with them. I mean, I'm afraid of pain. I don't want to be in pain, and I hope to be conscious, but you know, you don't know. So I can't say I'm not afraid, but I don't. It's so individualized. Julie, why don't you take a pop at that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you're doing fine. I'm not somebody who's dying at the moment. Well, of course, like we've talked about before, we all are. But what I hear you saying is support. You know, talking to other people who are in the same place. You know, I think that part of what is powerful about what you're doing is sharing the experience. using it to deepen your own experience of yourself
Yes.
and of your own life.
Right.
And I just, when I think of all the people that I have worked with who are dying, to me that makes the biggest difference, is when people do the kinds of things that you're doing, which is using cancer to ask the question, what am I being asked to become? You know, what's getting called forward in me as a result of this experience? And when we begin to answer that question, life stays dynamic, and yes, I know I'm dying, and I'm still here, I'm alive, and I'm gonna contribute.
Yeah, I guess there's another program I participated in that I thought was very helpful, and I think it's pretty much equal men and women too. It's called MBSR, Mindfulness-Based Stress Release. And it was started by a guy at MIT for all the people that just were in so much pain that their doctors gave up on them and sent them to this mindfulness thing. And so there's somebody here in town that teaches it. And basically it's an exercise in this very moment right now, what's going on with me. And in this very moment, am I afraid? Maybe that could be yes. But you learn to, I guess the main thing I learned out of that, and I have a friend that's just going through it now, and I'm just amazed at the transformation she's done, which of course has nothing to do with cancer. There's people in there for all kinds of reasons, is to stop being attached to how you want life to be, because that's so draining, and to just look at what is in the moment right now. In the moment right now, I'm experiencing this community with you that's so fulfilling and satisfying, and you look at those experiences and they carry you through the dark times, because you know they're dark times, but you know, if you can look at the balance and say you do have some good times, it's easier for me. That was a very useful thing for me. And it's a canned 8-week course. I mean, and it's Denise Dempsey's the one that teaches it in town through psychiatric services or something. Anyhow, there's some initial sharing, and then there's very specific exercises, and I think just learning to be able to stay in the moment. And another thing is, which I mentioned in my care pages, because I was trying to think about what was I going to say tonight, and then I said, well, that's stupid. I just want to converse, you know, that's what feeds me, which is a good question to ask yourself. And I just had a total brain fart. I don't know where I was going with that. I have no idea.
Well, you said you were thinking about you said you were thinking about what you wanted to say with us, but you're more concerned about the conversation and being in the moment.
Oh yes, right. So what I, oh my God, I forgot.
That's okay.
Well,
That's part of it. Right now.
We have more questions for
The
you.
mindfulness practice that they're doing, do you know is that John Kabat-Zinn's?
John Kabat-Zinn's program,
Is it?
yes. He's a guy out of MIT, and he was basically taking all these people that were on huge pain medications, and people go in there for depression and cancer and all kinds of things. But you know, it's not about your story, and that's another thing that you learn, especially, I mean, I didn't get this concept until my 50s, that, you know, you spin a story in your head and you go, and you can get out of it, but not the way you got in it. You can't get out of it the way you got in it. And so this is just another way, you know, to quieten your mind, or, you know, another tool to just say, I'm more than this thing that I got running around in my head, and I'm not going to solve it by giving it more power. I have to think of other things. It's like the Sound of Music, the happy thoughts. You know what fires you up. Yes.
So what is your daily routine?
My daily routine? I try to do yoga. There's a yoga class on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And sometimes, as Judy knows, Shavasana's, the type of yoga we do is you lay back and you prop up your knees on blankets and you just veg. So sometimes that's all I can do. And the question was, what do I do? What's my daily routine? But I'm a lightweight in terms of meditation. I've done all kinds of meditation classes. I can't do it on my own, so I've got these guided imageries. And my favorite CD at the moment is by Anita Murjani. She wrote Dying to Be Me, a near-death experience, and she's got this companion CD, and it puts you in this alpha state. And it's very good just for self-esteem, you know, because I still beat myself up. I'm much better, but still do it. And so I try to listen to that in the morning. And then I get tired, and I've got this little heater thing. It's called the infrared thing. It looks like a half donut, and it emanates heat because it gives me warmth. And so I'll do that, so I kind of use that too. And then I go on my care pages. It's like, you know, when you first got your cell phone and you were checking your messages, what a treat that is. It's like, oh, who's written me a message and who's gotten on my site? So, so that's part of it too. So that's no longer part of the routine. And I love to go out with friends, and I belong to the Alhambra Club, and I have a swimming buddy who I was until I got my bad CT scan on January 7th. On January 5th, I swam 30 minutes. I was swimming 4 times a day. And I can't get on a bathing suit now. This would be way too painful. But I go in the women's locker room. She swims, and I sit in the steam room in the hot tub and just.
So what is your eating lifestyle?
I can't eat very much, and I don't like meat much, but I really think I need it. I mean, my body tells me I need it, and so I'm buying more and more at the co-op to try to go organic and, you know, better food quality. So I'm trying this. It's called the. I just started 2 days ago, and I'm going to see the doctor on Friday about it, get more details, and I ordered a recipe book. But it's the Wesley A. Price diet, and so that's what I'm going to give a try to. And I started the raw milk, and I got to tell you, my dumps are different. I don't know what that means, but something's different.
Oh, I think she was actually first. Go ahead,
okay.
and I'll go after.
Sorry.
I wanted to know if there's anything you haven't done yet that you want to do.
I'd love to go to Alaska and see the Northern Lights. You know,
Oh,
that's
no.
been on my grandmother talked about that when I was a kid. I've been to Alaska twice, but they weren't there. So, and we were host to an exchange student, 3 different exchange students. And I just talked with one of them, and he was like our son. He was with us for a year, and he died shortly after he went back to Denmark. And it was such a loss for us. And I talked with the dad. It was like we're co-parents. And he's coming to visit me next week or the week after, so I really hope I get to see him.
Speaking of the Aurora Borealis, you should go see it. I went to Alaska in the wintertime, and it's probably the closest you'll ever be to
Right.
God. If you believe in God, it's just
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
But he was talking about, you know, your eating habits and nutrition, and the reason why I'm actually specializing in nutrition for older adults and with cancer and diabetes. That's what I want to do, is counter cancer and diabetes. And I know you said that you didn't get on a special diet before, and now you're having to find out that you have to do something. You feel like you have to eat more protein. Do you wish you would have done a better? I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to give up things you love. I
know. So the question is the diet. You know, do I regret not doing it earlier? I tried earlier, but I was getting results with the chemotherapy at the time, and like I said, I didn't have any discipline. And especially when I was in the drug trial in LA, I mean, I saw people that were vegetarians their whole life, and they're 21 and they've got cancer. And so, you know, there's a lot of, you know, I blame myself, yes, but I don't know. I swear, for me, I really think the cancer was meant to be for me. I mean, it's exposed my purpose in life. And I don't know if the diet would have cured me, frankly. I don't know. I mean, I'm giving it a try, mostly for palliative relief. If I can get any relief from my belly, you know, great.
Yeah.
So I try not to beat myself up about it, because I know enough people that, you know, ate healthy their whole lives and still have cancer and have met them. But I can't say, and I tell you, one thing not to do with your beloveds, just don't tell them you got to do this. That just drives me friggin' crazy. And so with your advice, offer it, especially in writing, because I've got a thing called chemo brain. You've noticed I slur my words sometimes, I forget things sometimes. It's called chemo brain. It's an acknowledged thing that happens, that you just lose your memory. And just lost where I'm going with that one too.
And you know what I think is people think that's just not so, because I mean, it's a fallacy that people tell you have to be a vegetarian, you ate meat, this is what gave you cancer. That is not at all the truth, and that's.
But see, what I believe is there is no truth in that.
Right, there is
you
no
have
truth.
You have to figure it out for yourself.
Right.
And so for me, you know, being told what to do is like a red flag.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Were you? I think you haven't spoken up yet. How about you?
I haven't. I just wanted to know about your beliefs as far as any type of religion goes, along those lines, and how your journey with cancer has been affected, and just your viewpoint on it.
You repeat that.
Yeah, so the question is my religious beliefs, and has it changed with cancer? And I grew up as a Protestant in a mainstream church, and it was a very healthy part of our family. But I became agnostic in college and started pursuing Buddhism, metaphysics, and then I've gone in and out of hiding for that like 4 or 5 times, and then I went to a Unity Church for a while. But for me, the yoga is because I believe in God, and I believe in prayer, and I don't want to sound dogmatic here, but I believe that God loves all people and doesn't favor any one kind of religion. And so I guess, and I've gone back and forth about reincarnation and all that stuff. My spiritual belief has definitely been stronger through the cancer, that I'm going to a happy place. The near-death experiences are more real for me, you know, although mine will probably not be near-death, although that would be cool. And I know I'm going to see my mother. They died years ago. So that's been stronger. And I guess I was such a workaholic and tied my identity so much into my work. And since I kind of got sick right out of work, that adjustment of realizing that we're so much more than our work or whatever, either our stories about our bad beginnings or, you know, that I've understood love and kindness is precious.
My question, Lauren, was kind of like that, because I've been fascinated with near-death experiences, and from all that I've read, most of them describe something beautiful.
Right.
You know, absolutely beyond beautiful.
Right.
When they slip through that door. And so, is that...
That's absolutely my belief that will happen. I mean, I guess my belief about how that will go, and this is just what's come to me, is I believe that you have people that will greet you from, you know, that are on the other side, that will meet you and take you in miraculous places, and that you'll gradually merge into, you know, the super consciousness, and you'll lose your ego and you won't know who people are based on how you knew them in this life. And that's kind of sad for me. And of course I wanted to know the truth of, you know, stuff that happened to me, but, you know, maybe I'll find out and then it won't matter, because, you know, I won't be a happy consciousness. So I guess that's kind of my beliefs have evolved. But I have to say, when I was a hospice volunteer, I had one patient, and very close with the family, and our therapist was fantastic with one of their kids. But he was on a lot of morphine, and he had I saw him when he died, and it was not pretty. And so, I don't know what that means, but I saw it once, it wasn't pretty.
About 5.5 years ago, my dad died from lung cancer. And before he died, we never really had a real heart-to-heart talk. So my question is, have you had a conversation with your husband and your 2 sons about moving on after you die?
I have. My older son is the only one that has any kind of belief in afterlife. My husband's an agnostic, and my other son is very much a here and now, and so he's very good about talking about what's going on now, and he's asked about my wishes, but he's not talked about what happens afterwards. But I went to a, which I would highly recommend except they're not doing anymore. I went to a thing called Healing Journeys with a woman named Jan Adrian, and we've since become friends. And they had all kinds of cancer survivors there. I think it was in October or so. And there were lots of stories there about, you know, people on the other side. And from one of those talks, I got the name of the healer because I thought I'd try that in Oakland. So I went to the healer, and she's a great massage therapist too, which is nice. And I loved my mother dearly, and she died in '86. And the first thing that she said to me, I didn't know she was a psychic. I just thought she was a healer. I didn't know what a healer really meant. But she said, wow, your mother keeps on doing this to me. What's that about? I said, I have no idea. And she said, did she bake? And my mother baked apple pies all the time for my dad. He loved them. And she said, she keeps on going like this. And she said, oh, you were so smart and so intuitive. And it was like my mother never came through to me before, and it was so precious to me. And I just know she's going to be the first person I see. Absolutely know that's going to be the person I see. And so I told my older son that, but you know, I really don't have that communication with my other two people in my family. But I mentioned it with my girlfriends. Yes.
All right. What? Oh, I'm going to forget my question.
Welcome to the club.
You have chemo brain too.
The one who had nothing to say.
That's what I have. I just didn't know it.
I like it better than senior moments.
Yeah, I'm getting there. What is the one thing you want to do, not just by yourself, but with your family? What are the things?
Well, I started to try to tell my husband how I wanted, we started talking about my memorial service. Well, we still have to discuss that some more. I'd like to get us all together. My father-in-law, I adore, my husband's father. He's been like my own father. And I went 2 weeks ago to LA to celebrate his 80th birthday, which is a big deal in Japan. He was raised in Japan. And I was really glad that I went there and my whole family was there. So I was glad to send him off. But I need to get the four of us together, just the four of us. My husband's not ready to talk about the memorial service. He's just teared up too much about it. My siblings are coming next week, so maybe the week after. I don't know how long I have, but I suspect it's just a few months.
And what would you want to leave behind for your grandchildren?
I think I'd like to leave behind my care pages. You know, my younger son did send me this really touching note. What would I want to leave behind? Because you can get the care pages bound up in a book. You know, it has all the private messages and stuff. My younger son told me once he's got a girlfriend and they're probably going to get married. And he said, even though you may not be with me, you're infused to everything, and that you will be with me always, and my kids will know you through me. And that was just so endearing.
Leave your golf set.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no. His girlfriend is just taking up golf, so maybe I could do that. I do want to have. I love scarves, and I'm often cold, so I do have 4 girlfriends in mind where I'm going to have a. Okay, girls, get it on and just go through and get what you want. So, yes.
I wanted to know what helps you or like makes you want to get out of bed every morning.
Can we repeat that?
The question is what makes me want to get out of bed every morning. There are times when I was in chemo that I didn't want to get out of bed, and I didn't. I took Ativan, which I never took. I mean, in my 20s, I took all kinds of drugs, right? But,
Mary.
I was a hippie for
My whole image of you.
I get
And my nephew looked at me like I was an artifact, like, you were really a hippie in the 60s? And I said, right on. Just being alive and looking at the blue sky, and I mean, the days that I took the Ativan, I was too sick, I just wanted to be unconscious and get through the pain. But those were really pretty few and far in between, or get rid of the headache. The headache was killer. So for the most part, and it seems like people visit me all the time, and I love it. So I have something new in my day every day. I mean, tomorrow my sister-in-law called me because I'd love to get a cat, but I know it's not fair to get a cat with me, you know, being so close to death. And so my sister-in-law has a friend who's taking care of a cat, and she says, why don't you just come over and get a cat fix? So she's going to pick me up tomorrow. We're going to go over to this friend's house, and I can pet this cat, and you know. So, I mean, and that just came up tonight right before I came here. So stuff like that comes up, and so there's something new in my life. And so I guess I really, if there's anything I could encourage people to do, like your question about support, is get out and do something that makes you feel good. Something, you know, to change your day, to give you something to look forward to, because it gets you out of your stuff. I mean, that's true whether you have cancer or not.
Do people treat you differently, like, because you have cancer, like people that are close to you?
Well, I was telling Michelle, it was almost a bummer because my face doesn't look that unhealthy, right?
Right.
I didn't lose my hair. It was like, I have pain, doesn't that count? But, no, like I said, I'm honored that you're here and that you're asking these questions because so many people are uncomfortable around death. And for me, the most uncomfortable, some friends, the care pages is all they can do. They can't visit me because they feel like they don't know what they want to say. And for me, being present and not being uncomfortable, not being a preacher, listening, talking about good times that you had together, laughing, that's what I want. I want relationship. I want love. I want intimacy. I want authenticity. I want congruity. And so the more that you can be who you are, that's what I crave. It's like, I wish I would have gotten how precious that is earlier because that's what makes your insides and outsides the same. It feels so good. I guess,
You guys, you know what I'm thinking is let's take a break because it's 9 o'clock and some of you may need to run down the hall. Can we just take a break and then come back? And if you have more questions, we can also take a few more questions. We'll go for another half hour or so.
Okay, so this one I just briefly touched on before. What made me get checked for cancer and what were my symptoms? We were in Turkey and Greece in November, and I noticed that I couldn't eat very much. And I was overweight. I lost 30 pounds through this whole thing. So I was happy. You know, I had lost weight once before for some, you know, for no known reason. But I just felt something was wrong, and I had a really good internist. And I went to him and I said, I just think something's wrong because I've lost 15 pounds in 4 months, and that just doesn't sound right. And I had a complete physical in June, and I'm coming to see him in November. So in retrospect, probably something should have come up in June because I was already experiencing a lot of weight loss then. So no, I had no symptoms, but the internist said, can't you give me anything to go by? And I said, well, I kind of had some twinges here that weren't familiar, but they didn't hurt. And so he felt right here, which is where your liver is, and he said, does that hurt? And he went back like 4 times, and he ordered the CT scan, and, well, he ordered the blood test. Blood test came back with a warning, and I had the diagnosis a week later. So he was a really good internist, and he retired this month, and he said he's only had one other case of cholangiocarcinoma, which is what bile-duct cancer is. He'd only seen one other case in his life, so I was very lucky that, well, lucky, I mean, it was this big, so it was hopeless. But so I had no symptoms, but weight loss, when I got my first CT scan, the guy was really sweet, and And he said, what are you here for? And I mentioned a couple things, but when I said weight loss, he went, oh. So if you're getting unexpected weight loss, you might want to go and get it checked out. The next thing is, you know, I said you talked about chemo treatments for around 5 hours. What actually happens during chemo treatments, and what do you think about why you receive treatment? Actually, my last treatment was 5 hours, and again, they hook this needle into your port, and this is like a little, it's like a little dish underneath here, and I don't know if you can see, but there's a line that goes up to my jugular, and the reason behind a port is that your jugular vein is bigger, so it distributes the poison in a less toxic manner, because your veins here, which is where they give chemo if you don't have a port, it's slower, those veins are littler, so it hurts less here, and the nurses like it better because when you have chemo, your veins are shot, and so the chemo is easier to access. So, you know, they hook you up, they give you, you know, you can get lidocaine, which I'm always a proponent of it, you know, they give it to little kids, I ask for it, because it numbs it when you get, you know, when they poke you. And then, when I was getting the chemo in Sacramento, you know, the oncologist never came down to visit me, but the nurse, after my second treatment, I was shaking like this at the end of 4 hours, and I nearly fell, which a fall is a bad thing. They track that in hospitals. And so she went up to my oncologist and said, you get her in a lower dose, that's too strong for her. I'm very sensitive to medicines, and so I still have a lot of anger about that oncologist because she didn't listen to me. And if that nurse hadn't defended me, I was ready to die 4 months into treatment because that was so awful. My symptoms were so terrible, but it was mostly afterwards. It was the migraine headache that I got. So in chemo, what I think about, I brought books or I slept. You know, it's, you know, you just look at this little drip. They have this little bag that looks like this big, and it drips in, you know, they've got this long tube, and it drips into your port, and it's battery operated, so if you go to the bathroom, they can unplug yourself from the thing, and you can go to the bathroom and then come back. But, you know, the chemo itself, other than that, my first 4 months weren't that bad. It was the next several days of things afterwards. So that's that question. Medical doctors are not trained to know how to subdue the parasite. They would not have a job. Do you believe they really know what they're doing? Interesting that you talk about parasite, because somebody just sent me a link. I've got a girlfriend's daughter who's got C. diff, which is a disease that you get when you've had too many antibiotics and you're resistant. Very bad stuff. And they've done research on this thing called fecal transplantation. And I designed an IT system for the state of California's mental health system, so I'm a little familiar with healthcare, but not really. And so this parasite thing, they take feces from somebody else, ideally somebody in the family, and they found that healthy feces in your gut restores your own parasitic balance, and your own immune system takes over, and I'm all for that. There's a whole thing called epigenetics, which I read about and say, why can't I have that? They've discovered that, you know, people, identical twins can have the same DNA, and one gets sick and one doesn't. So it's not just the DNA, there's something else. What is that? What epigenetics says is there's a whole thing that separates, you know, that covers the cell. It's like a gatekeeper, and it switches the on-off switch of DNA behavior, which can explain why, you know, diet, why healing, why, you know, why some people get sick and some don't. They have the exact DNA. So interesting to say about parasites, because I found that a university, as much as I hate university settings, UCSF has been a different story though. They've been wonderful. University settings are where you're going to find out about drug trials. My doctor at Sutter didn't know jack about drug trials. She considered it alternative treatment. So I think, and this Moss guy, he's a consultant. I'm paying $150 to say what drug trials there are, but I really, and I'm doing that on Thursday, but I think that's a lost cause because I'm too sick to be in a drug trial. So, but you know, they're trained to fix symptoms, you know, attack those symptoms. That's their training. They're not trained to do grief counseling. They're not trained to do nutrition. They're not trained to do, they ask you for all the drugs and all the supplements you take, but they don't know what to do with it. Nutritionists don't know what to do with it. Complementary medicine, they're just now, there's a whole thing called integrative oncology where they're trying to put together supplements and Eastern medicine and chemotherapy and how they play together, because some are contraindicated. some, reduce the efficacy of the drug. So, but nobody can know everything. So, yeah, they know what they're doing as far as what they're trained, maybe. But my stutter doctor, I was not really happy with. Next question, do you have any special requests for your family to take care of you once you have gone into the river? Cremation. I have an advance directive. I would strongly recommend that. An advance directive, you can get on the internet. I've got a 3-page thing which basically says, no extraordinary measures. Let me go if I'm dying. Unless there's a reasonable chance of recovery, let me die. So I had that, and I make sure every new appointment that I go to that they have that advance directive, and especially when I'm getting surgery, let me die. If I'm going to be miserable, I'm not going to have a quality of life, let me die. So they all know that. On a scale of 1 to 10, how scared are you? 9 as far as pain. I'd say 0 for death. I really feel like I'm going to a happy place for death, so I'm not scared of that at all. What do you feel when you know that your body is failing and you're dying? I've just really come to know that in January. I really haven't. I've somehow felt like the therapies are working. I've got a positive attitude. I'm not going to die anytime soon, but I know I'm dying now. How do I know? My dreams are more vivid. My CAT scans are terrible, which is basically an image of the cancer and where it's all over the place. And like I said, I still have this dilemma of, do I have control over when I'm going to die or not? And I wish I knew the answer to that, because I'd be a lot less angst if I felt like I could just let go and just say I'm going to die when I'm going to die. But for me, I don't know that answer. So, and I guess I would also say that I'm crying a lot more. So, I don't know. What about this physical life will you miss the most? Friendship, absolutely, no doubt about that. And family. What about this physical life do you think you won't miss? Negative people. Stay away from them, they're toxic. Which was the hardest thing to do, hardest thing to let go, if you indeed let go of something? Well, I would say, especially when you go into chemo, you're going to lose something in your body. Something's going to be worse afterwards. And so that's hard. Making plans and having to change them. Waiting for treatments. I mean, this week, I got a bad CT scan on Friday. My doctor left me a message saying, these are really bad. I'm really concerned. I'll try to call you on Saturday. I didn't hear from him until today. So this whole weekend of waiting, that's horrible. And I've gotten sick every single December, and holidays, it just sucks. So that's waiting for answers and having somebody explain it to me in a dumbed down enough version, but in a dignified way to know what's happening. Because I sent it to my friend who's at residence, and she said, oh, it's just really bad. It was like, I want more information than that. I somehow, because I try to visualize, I don't know. I just want to know. So, the plans, I actually have some notes about, because I had some notes Julie had asked me to write down, what I've lost, and I hadn't really thought about that until she asked me. Yeah, so I wrote plans, and whether the side effects will be permanent or not, like my neuropathy's permanent. I've also had to get used to no appetite, sleeplessness, headaches, nausea, vomiting, eye gunk, sun sensitivity, fatigue. I love to play golf. I can't be in the sun with that last chemo I had. That's canceled, but I can't play golf anyhow. Losing my ability to concentrate. My memory was really good. I could interview customers and observe a process for 8 hours and remember it without taking a note. I have to ask friends to email me stuff because I just can't remember. So it's, losing your bodily functions that's hard. And then trying the diet changes and the supplements and feeling hopeless that you're never going to do it. But you try anyway. I've spent hundreds of dollars on supplements and, taking about 10 of them and giving up. And then taking pain pills, and then the constipation, because when you take narcotics, you get plugged up. So then you got to take stuff to unplug you up, and then you get diarrhea, and sometimes you get nausea, and so none of that's really fun. And then you feel fuzzy from the narcotics. One of my chemos was supposed to make me euphoric, and I never got any of that, thank you very much. And then just, frustrating with the medical system. Now, I know UC Davis, I didn't qualify because I was not new to cancer, but some of the hospitals are adopting a thing called a peer navigator. So if you're new to cancer, I would recommend asking for that. Peer navigator is somebody that's been out of treatment for a year, a survivor for at least a year, and they help new patients, because you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. Tell me what a CT scan is. Oh, you have to fast? You didn't tell me that. Oh, I can have water, but I can't have food. I didn't know that. It's going to take 2 weeks to make an appointment, so I won't be so anal about I can't get it done. I'm such a get-it-done person, and you just have to wait. So,
Mari, will you tell them what neuropathy is?
oh, yes, yeah, thank you. Neuropathy is also common in diabetics, although in cancer it's slightly different. But it's numbness in the feet and the hands. So 3 months into my first treatment, I've got a smartphone, and I had to wear gloves all the time because my hands were so cold, and I had to have a stylus. And I had to find the stylus, and I didn't have really control of my fingers because they were so numb. And I couldn't really type on the computer because it hurt too much. So that's what neuropathy of the hands are. For the feet, some people can't even walk. They lose their balance. For me, my feet are numb from about here to here. Not totally numb, I feel them, but they're always cold. So I've got about 5 pair of bugs. So in diabetics, they also experience it. So that's what neuropathy is. What part of your life has been the most important to you after your diagnosis? I think the care pages, really, for me. I mean, the care pages have accentuated my friendships, have deepened them with colleagues that have come out of the woodwork that I knew 10 years ago that are telling me their story. It's been so, to meet people authentically, for me, it's the best. Are there anyone you wanted to apologize to? I think I've done that. And that's what my son has given me grief about forgiving myself for. Because I apologize to him for how I couldn't defend him against some things. Have you said any goodbyes to your loved ones? Yes, all of them. What is the most positive thing or experience that would have never happened if you hadn't been diagnosed? Absolutely, my kindness and my loving myself. I don't think that would have happened without cancer. And plus, I just feel like the care pages is my legacy, and if I can help anybody even before I die, that's my hope. So, are you afraid of not being here anymore? I'm not afraid of not being here anymore, but I'm afraid of my loved ones. But that's not my fence. How much pain are you in physically and mentally, and what can you take or do? I've got all kinds of pain drugs. I've got morphine patches, I've got OxyContin, I've got Ativan, I've got Tylenol 3, Tylenol 4, but I don't take it. I get by on Tylenol right now. I mean, this is uncomfortable because I hate all the side effects of narcotics. But I've been on them before. I mean, I had a radiation thing where my gut was just trashed for 3 months. I couldn't stand it. I was taking antacids, and I had heart guts. So I've been on them, but I prefer not to.
Mari, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much physical pain are you in?
I would say about a 5. It's really the belly. I mean, I have some stuff going on here. I'm worried because the vena cava, which is the latest thing where the cancer is in my heart, and I'm feeling some pain here, so I'm anxious about if I can get that procedure or not. And again, I'm waiting, and I may get a referral on Monday, and who knows, referral may be that I can't have it, and if I can have it, how long is it going to take to get scheduled? I mean, that's all anxiety.
Can you explain the vena cava to them?
The vena cava is basically between your heart and your liver, and it's what causes the blood to back up. And when the blood backs up from your liver, that's what one of the things that could cause this belly. So if I could get any relief, from this belly, that would be it. So I've known people in way more pain than me. I mean, when I was at Cedars-Sinai, they had the pediatrics infusion center on the same level as me, and to hear these little kids cry, and imagine what these parents are doing with kids that are going to die that look like, it's so awful. UC Davis has a separate floor for the kids, and I'm glad of that because it just breaks your heart. I mean, I'm 65, I'm old, I've had a pretty good life, so I think we're ready for some questions.
I actually have one for you. Earlier you said that you feel like cancer is your purpose, like having cancer has shown your purpose. And you've said that a couple of times actually tonight. And when you do, tears come up.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if you can speak to what those tears are. When you say that, like, what's the feeling that brings
Why
those
did I have to
tears
wait until
up?
I was 65 to like myself and realize I was enough?
Yeah.
That's the tears.
Yeah.
And I don't have to blame myself for not doing the right thing, which I did for so much of my treatment, because it's life or death, right? And you're just, your anxiety times 10 of doing the right thing, and I'll die if I don't do the right thing, and just trying to give that up all the time. And I remember I had a job I hated too, and I had this really sweet guy that worked for me, and it was a night out job in a hotel, and my body never adjusted to the graveyard shift. And I switched to 7 a.m. shift, and I saw this sweet guy that worked for me, and I said, I never knew how unhappy I was. And he said, you gotta be kidding me, you were whining every day. I didn't know it. I just didn't hear it. So I guess maybe I'm better at asking questions about you here on how unhappy you are. But I've never been very good at it's like kids shut up and don't speak up is my upbringing, so it's hard for me to push it away. And so, but for me, it's easier to avoid it. Mm-hmm. And I've got so many good friends in my life that I'm getting better at that because I'm making choices of what makes me happy. And I really think life is way simpler than what I've made it. And that life is about to be joyous and happy and to feed your soul, period. And you don't have to do great things or be somebody great. When you're in your joy, if that's fishing or whatever the heck it is, that's what we're here for, is to be happy and to love each other. That's all there is. That's what I've come to anyway.
I know that you were saying that you were, old, or you lived a full life and things like that, I guess. But if you could go, say, what would be the one thing that you would want to get across to somebody? Like if you could do it all over, how would you, what would be the one thing that would, stick out the most? Like, I should have done this my whole life. Like, I should have.
There's two things that stick out for me in terms of what should I have done, what I've done differently. And one is, especially with my older kid who has I was always trying to get him help. I didn't spend enough time enjoying him. I was so trying to do the right thing and get him help, but I didn't enjoy him enough. So that's one thing I wish I could change. And another is, I was 32 when I got married. I met my husband through a dating service. And before the internet, you listen to videotape. And I was purposely trying to do something out of the box because I was attracting the wrong kind of men in my life. And I think I married too soon because I felt like I can't trust my heart. And so I have to think out of the box. And he's a good man, has the right stats. He adores me. But that's always been a question. And so my children answered that question for me in terms of unconditional love. I experienced that with them. But I think I would have waited to feel more sure because I didn't like my job. so I was using it partly as an escape. And I guess another thing that I'd like to change, wish I could have changed, is I was very good at my work. My sibs are all professionals, and I was an IT person, which was considered not professional, even though I have a college degree. But I was very good at designing systems and listening to people. And I think I distracted myself into feeling good about that because I didn't feel like I was a good parent. I didn't have a model that I wanted to repeat, and I was searching to be a better parent. And so, of course, loving myself earlier, that would have been great, but that seems impossible, in retrospect even. But I wish I would have understood earlier, like I said, that we try to take in all of life and not just what we're comfortable in. I was taking comfort in being good at what I did professionally and avoiding what I felt like I was a failure in, which was nearly everything else. Yes?
What would be the last thing that you want your sons and your husband to know about you before you pass away? Or what's the last thing you wanted to say to them?
Yeah. What would I want to say to my husband and kids before they...
Can we repeat that?
Yeah, what would I want to say to my husband and kids before, as I die, or whatever, right before I die? I think I've said it already, how important they are to me. I don't feel like there's unfinished business. And that's this other part of me about, has my soul gotten what's needed? Because in January I had this major 2 things, cleanup things with my son and my husband, and it's like, is my soul just ready to move on? And it's just, I don't need to be here anymore? I mean, I'd love to be here, but on the other hand, I feel ready. I don't want to leave, but I feel done. I mean, there's more things I'd love to do, but in terms of what I have to do, I feel like I'm done. Yes.
All right, so when you go to the hospital, who goes along with you?
My husband's, well, it's funny, my husband goes with me to my oncologist appointments into the hospital, but he's not going with me, I hope Jan's gonna take me, she offered, to this alternative medicine guy, because he's way off the charts traditional, and we don't agree at all on medical care. So, and he doesn't go to my internist, which I'm really glad of, because my new internist is so personable and asks so many caring, kind questions, and I feel more comfortable with him one-on-one. So I'm glad of that. And he's pretty good about taking his respite too, which I'm glad of too, because that would be a burden if he felt his father, my husband's father, has got a demented wife, and he doesn't give any respite to himself, and it just drives me mad because you need to do it. And it's a burden to the patient if the caregiver doesn't give himself a break. So he's pretty good about that. Yes.
Yes. Do you feel that days are too fast?
Do I feel like a day goes too fast?
Yes.
No, I can't say I do. From all the feedback I get on the care pages, I feel like I've inspired some other people to not take things for granted and, see the precious things. I think if you would have asked me that question maybe a year ago, I would have answered it differently though. But like I said, I know I'm dying. I didn't know I was dying before, so it's more of it's a quiet that settles over you. I don't know what those tears mean, but so whatever time I have here is precious, and I'll go when I go, I guess. Yes.
So is being a hippie still in your heart?
Is the what?
So is being a hippie still in your heart?
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah, so I think that's a good place to kind of just stop the questions for right now. I want to just shift gears a little bit. First of all, I want to say that what you just said, and you said, I'm not even sure what these tears are about. I just want to say that what I think is really powerful about tonight, for me and I suspect for others, is that part of what you agreed to do by coming here tonight is to allow us to actually see you begin acceptance right in the moment.
Right.
That's what struck me when you said this quiet starts to come over you. That's what strikes me, is that as you're speaking right here, right tonight, there's something about using the words that you've used, saying out loud, I know I'm dying, to a room full of people. It's like
Good timing, isn't it?
Right. It's like there really is something powerful about Mari being able to come and explain to all of us what the experience is, and there's also really something powerful about you all agreeing to be here to also listen to Mari. That there's that, to me, what's happening is there's that cycle of giving and receiving going on.
Right.
And Mari is getting, it's almost like I'm watching it happen as you're talking.
Right.
I can see a depth of, it's almost like there's pieces of denial that are dropping away as you're sitting here tonight.
Right.
And that's a gift. That's part of what we give back to people when we're willing to be present with them. And part of the gift that you're giving is, this is what it's like. Let me give you a glimpse into what is important in life when you're standing at the edge,
Right.
and you know that you're about to jump off and fly into whatever comes next. And that's part of what's happening here this evening. So I just want to be really,
Yeah, I think you're right.
I want to be able to honor that in you, because it's just so clear to me that that's what's happening. And it takes a great deal of courage to come into a room like this and be as vulnerable and open as you have been. So I really want to say thank you. I mean, it's powerful. I want to take just a few minutes with Mari in the room, just to kind of process a little bit. I keep getting hot and cold here. How has it been for you? How has it been for you to sit here in the room with Mari and to ask questions and to hear what she has to say? I want to just check in with her. Anybody?
I'll start.
Go ahead, Arturo.
I think it's been wonderful, Mari. I'm glad I met you, and I'm glad you did this. And because death is a very sensitive subject.
It is.
And to be able to see you and the power you have. I mean, I wrote down some notes that are really, really going to help me. You're helping me. You're not, I mean, you're coming here, you're getting help, you're helping us. And so it's a sensitive topic.
It is.
And this is a wonderful class, Psych 390, and it's done a lot for me. I mean, when I went on your blog, I wasn't going to say anything. I didn't look in there, I barely got in there. I said, you know what? I've learned from this class, just share what you feel.
Yes.
And so if that helps people to be there.
Yes.
You've stated that people don't come to you because they don't know what to say.
Right.
But just go, just be there.
Exactly.
And as long as they're there.
Exactly.
And also what I felt is that even in a sensitive situation like this, there could be an interaction like Professor, like Julie just said. And so we've helped each other. I know
Yes.
you've helped me.
Yes.
So I can speak for myself.
Yes.
You've really helped me a lot, and I'm so glad I met you. And I can go on, but I'll give the floor.
Thank you.
I want to say too, I feel like we've been given a gift in that, just knowing that we're part of your legacy of what you're leaving to help other people. This has really been a powerful experience for me. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Anybody else?
I enjoy it. And honestly, I have really nothing to say when the class first started. Because I wanted to see you and, how you are. It was good to see that you're smiling for all of this. Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can smile no matter what.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Honestly, I believe that this is one of those classes that, you know, you will remember for the rest of your life. Like, it's not
Oh,
just, it's not a class that you just, you know, you're taking because it's like, I need the credits or something. It's something that's, it's like a life changer, you know, like you don't forget these moments, you know, it's like, and you always will remember it. Like, I'll always remember, you know, the things you said, and it's going to help me to change my life, you know, at a younger age, to take every moment and just realize there's impermanence there, and that, you know, just to you know, not stress about like all those things you were talking about, but to have that, you know, mindset.
But think about your peers who don't want to take the class because they don't want to know anything about death and dying and what they're missing out on. I mean, you're brave just to be here, to open yourself up to that experience because it's such a, you know, forbidden subject. And but it opens up so much life if you're willing to face it, because it, I mean, the yoga that we practice talks about, you know, that's our biggest fear is death. And if you go to MBSR, this mindfulness-based meditation, stress release, the practitioners have to actively pretend that they're dying. That's part of the teacher training, because that's our ultimate fear. And so if you can be comfortable around dying people, you can be comfortable in a lot of situations, you know, because you can be there. Think of all your friends that can't even be here.
Anybody else?
I just think, you know, the concept of dying of cancer, like you said, is something most people just want to run from.
Right.
Think of, and it's filled in my mind is always with doom and gloom and fear. And Mari has just been this amazing light, this human being that I love who is walking with cancer and just showing us. That's what your caretakers have done for everybody, is just saying, hey, just look, here it is. This is what it is.
Well, I think it also what you're speaking about, Judy, is some of what we talked about a couple of classes ago, which is that sometimes I'm really sorry that we use the word dying, because the truth is we're living until we're not breathing anymore. And that's a lot of what Mari is here to be really clear about, is I'm alive and I'm living and I'm learning how to love myself. And you know, here are the regrets that I have. All of those are little gifts for us that say, okay, you know, take a look at your own life. And I just think it's a really powerful thing. Mari, all you have to do is look at Mari and say she's not dying, she's living. You know, the body may well be giving way, but you know what? Your body's giving way too. So is mine. Yours is giving way a little faster right now, and we expect that you will leave the body, drop the body sooner than the rest of us, and none of us knows even that for sure.
Nope.
So it's powerful. Anybody else?
Thank you for
Betsy,
spending
go ahead.
precious time with us.
Well, it was very heartwarming for me. It's, I'm really glad that we did this too. I will remember it also.
Go ahead, Betsy.
I think what stuck with me most was when you said that you were learning how to finally love yourself, and audience appeared that not just me, but a lot of people carry with themselves throughout their own life, and they never really get to experience what life would be like if you just stop caring about what people think, and everything that you see wrong with yourself, if you really just let go of that, your quality of life would be that much better.
Well, and also about that, you know, the loving yourself that I've learned to do is, I had this misguided impressions you only got one chance. And so, even though, you know, I'm loving myself better, I slip into my old behavior. And so I still go there, but I get out of it faster, and I just say, inner critic, shut up. It's not doing me any good, and you're not leading me anywhere that's happy for me. Good, you know, it's just a good barometer, you know, does this make me feel good? Ask yourself that a lot.
Right, yeah. Anybody else? Okay.
Well, thank you for the evening, it was precious to me too.
Thank you. We'll think about that. Okay, so thank you for being here.